You're listening to the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast, where you'll gain the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to erase the unknowns, feel in control, and have an even better birth, no matter how you deliver. My name is Liesel, mom of two, practicing labor and delivery nurse, and your host. From over 8 years and counting of working at the bedside, I know that knowledge is the key to an even better birth. So tune in each week to learn about all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum from me, a labor and delivery nurse that's seen it all. And now let's get into this week's episode. Hey guys, it is week 2 of the 12 days, or I guess I should call it the 12 weeks of birth, but I already named it, so it's going to be the 12 days. I'm sorry. But anyways, it is week 2 of the 12 days of birth. And this week, I tried to find an episode way back in the library that had something to do with 2, but I couldn't find one that I really wanted to put out. So I'm just picking another one. And this week we are talking about what to do while you're waiting for your baby to arrive, because we all know that running joke, right? That pregnancy is 9 months long, but the last month of pregnancy feels like it has 5,453,632 days in it, right? It feels like forever. Well, in this episode, I went through and just listed out some things that you can do in that month to help pass the time and help, just so you're not thinking about the fact that you're still pregnant. So I thought this was a very useful episode and I wanted to re-air it. So here we go. Okay, you guys, this is going to be a quickie episode. I like those. Quick and fast episode. Quick tips. All right. So I am going to go over 12 tips that I have, or 12 things that you can do while you wait for your sweet baby to get here. Because I know what it's like being pregnant at the end and what that wait is like, and you just need to fill your time with stuff. All right. This first one is make sure you've got a safe sleep space for baby in your room. So as we prepare to bring baby home, the details and emphasis always goes into the nursery, right? Separate room. It's really fun to think about like themes and everything and what it's going to look like. But right before baby is coming, now is a good time to check in and make sure that you also have a nice, safe sleep space set up for baby in your room. The AAP does recommend co-rooming, not co-sleeping, but co-rooming for the first 6 to 12 months of life to reduce the risk of SIDS. I know that sounds like forever, and take that with a grain of salt. I did not have my baby sleep in my room for 6 months, but some people do. And that is what the AAP recommends. Definitely a good idea, though, to do when baby is little. Some really great options for co-rooming are pack and plays. I have a lot of people who just do a pack and play, and that's a perfectly fine option. You can use the snoo, which is what I used. And then they have obviously a ton of bedside style bassinets or sleepers. A lot of people use those like ones that you can kind of attach to your bed too. So that's an option as well. In addition to a safe sleep space in your room, it can be really helpful also to have a little changing area and a little rocker, rocking chair or nursing station. Some people like to do it just in the bed. That's what I did because I didn't have a lot of space. But if you have a bigger room, it might be worth it to think about putting a chair in there and like a little area to kind of change baby as well. Number 2, do some cooking or baking for your freezer. I am not a great cook. I'm an okay baker, but if you're a decent cook and you enjoy cooking, take some time to prep healthy and easy meals for your freezer. This one is not one that's on a lot of checklists, but I think it is so important to say. A lot of baked goods do freeze easily too. Muffins, banana bread, stuff like that. And if you're not a super great cook like I am, go to Trader Joe's. They have a really, really great freezer section. Other food stores do too. But if you have a Trader Joe's, they actually have some really healthy, yummy freezer options. And that is just as productive as making extra freezer meals. A good tip too that I learned is in that last, kind of month, or even before that, when you make a meal, if you're the kind of person that cooks, I don't, but if you're the kind of person that cooks dinner, a good, easy way to start like getting stuff into your freezer for postpartum is to just double your recipe and freeze whatever is left instead of taking time out of your schedule to just make freezer stuff. Like just kind of tag it along to when you already make dinner. Number 3, make some do-it-yourself patsicles. Oh yeah. So does everybody know what patsicles are? I hope by this point, you guys have been following me for a little bit. You know what patsicles are, but if you don't, listen up. So after you have a baby vaginally, regardless of if you tear or not, your vagina is usually quite sore and even sometimes swollen down there, okay? And ice packs really do feel amazing down there. Patsicles are basically just ice packs that are infused with other healing and pain relief goodness. All you have to do is grab some pads, whichever kind that you like. The bigger, the better, in my opinion. You pour some witch hazel on there and you soak it pretty good. You don't want it to be dripping, but you soak it pretty good. And then you pour some aloe on top and make sure you get the clear aloe, not the green stuff, because sometimes the green stuff, you can get irritated. So just make sure there's no dye or anything in the aloe. And then you just wrap them back up in the little wrapper and you put them in your freezer, in a little freezer bag, and you put them in your freezer. And then once you need them after postpartum, they are wonderful. They feel wonderful. Used a ton of them. Some women I have talked to find that keeping them open and freezing flat does work better than closing them up. I think it really just depends on how much you saturate the pad and, which pads you choose. But that is something I wanted to say as well. All right, next one. Take some extra maternity photos. I don't think there's anybody that has said, I took way too many photos while I was pregnant. I feel like so many moms tell me that they regret not taking more pictures during their pregnancy. Even if you did do a maternity shoot earlier in your pregnancy, I encourage you to get some photos of yourself in your everyday life. I know a lot of you guys feel like you're really swollen. You feel like you're really swollen. You just don't feel like yourself at the very end. But I promise someday you are going to wish that you had some pictures of you when you were 9 months pregnant. It's just fun to look back on memories. So grab your partner, grab a friend, can designate this to somebody. Say, hey, whoever, I really want some pictures of myself. Can you just be my designated picture taker when we're together? Number 5, I think we're on, have a special day for yourself. Okay, I cannot recommend this enough. Get a pedicure, eat your favorite food, go to your favorite restaurant, just try to relax and enjoy your final days with your bump, with your baby. Prenatal massages are also a wonderful activity for your final days, and so is reflexology. I did reflexology kind of the few hours before I went into labor. Really just anything that brings you joy. If you're not a pedicure person or a massage person, maybe you like to, do something else that's super relaxing. I just invite you to think about some things and just cram them all into one day and it will just be so nice. Number 6, go on a date night with your partner if you have one. So this is really important because it might be a while before you can do this again, right? And if you make it to your due date without going into labor, celebrate with a little due date. I should coin that. Due date instead of being disappointed, right? You're like bummed usually on your due date because you're like, oh, I want to go into labor. But hey, you're like, let's have our due date tonight, babe. So I have a couple of suggestions. So we already said the due date. You could do an induction or C-section eve date. Go on a little date the night before your induction or your scheduled C-section. You could have a foods to start labor date. I did one of those. Go somewhere that has really spicy wings and jalapeno poppers or pineapple or whatever. You could have a shopping for a baby date. My husband would not be super into that, but that would be fun too. Go somewhere that, has your favorite baby stuff and go shopping for a baby. And then movie night. Everybody loves movie night. All right. Number 7, make something special for baby. The activity of creating something for your baby in these final weeks is such a great way to pass the time. It's a little keepsake that you and your baby will hold on to forever. I'm going to give you some ideas. But no, of course, whatever you decide, can be unique to you. So these are some popular ones. You could knit or crochet a little hat or sweater, blanket, booties, anything you want to crochet or knit. Create a little unique piece of art for their room. How cool. Like you could say, hey, kiddo, when I was pregnant with you, I painted this beautiful picture that's in your room. I feel like that's pretty cool. You could pull out your sewing machine if you have one and If you know how to sew something, really the opportunities are endless. You can make clothes, nursery decor, changing mat, birth cloths, blanket, quilts, anything. You could create a little scrapbook. That's a very popular one, or a photo album, or, it's never too early to start a baby book. A lot of those baby books now too have a section in the beginning that you can write stuff about your pregnancy. All right, the sound of that heartbeat means it's time for this week's segment of Birth It Up Babies. This one says, "Hi, I watched your epidural labor class, even though I was hoping to go natural. However, because of your class, I was able to understand that I was having back labor, and because of that, my contractions could be expected to be more intense. Since I was able to understand what was happening to my body, I felt empowered to ask for an epidural, and I was able to finally let my body relax. Yes. After my epidural, I was able to take a nap, during which my water broke and I was dilated to a 10. So happy I went into my labor informed thanks to your class." Oh, I love it. Keep them coming, guys. I love these Birth It Up babies. If you want to have an even better birth, just like this mama, head on over to mommylabornurse.com/courses to learn more about our 3 online on-demand birth classes. And that just made me realize that we have 3. We still have 3 birth classes, but now guess what? You can get all of them. They're all packaged up. It's called this nice little all access pass. So all 3 birth classes you can get access to. You don't have to pick and choose anymore. Side note, you realize, this is what happens sometimes. I realized that, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys this, but I've been telling Instagram this, but I haven't told the podcast. Yes. But yes, we have all the birth classes in one now. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Number 8, write your baby a letter. So on a similar note, of course, take some time to write baby a letter. You really can't do this wrong. Whatever comes to your head, and you probably will cry as you're writing it and probably when you go back and read it, because, you're going to do that. I encourage you to write anything that you feel compelled to say, tell, or document for them. Make a little plan for when to give this letter to them later in life too. So some people do this and they write this to their kiddo and seal it, and then they don't open it until they're 18 or something. So you could do that, or you could open it on their first birthday. I don't know, whatever feels good. It might even be the start of a tradition. You might want to write letters to them every year for their birthday, and then you give all of them those letters when they turn 18. I've seen people do that too, and it's like super sweet. Number 9, talk with your partner about labor updates and birth announcements. Yeah, this is a conversation that is worth having. So one aspect of labor and birth that you may have not planned for yet is how you'll keep your family and your loved ones updated. Because if you have a family like mine, they're going to be very like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And this might be especially true to should your birth take, an unforeseen turn and you want to update your loved ones pretty quickly. Okay. Some people like to have one contact person who they can relay messages to, and then that person relays messages to everyone else. Or maybe your partner is perfectly okay with contacting everybody and just, communicating with everyone. Also, going along with this, you should also talk to your partner, if you have one, about who you want to tell directly after baby arrives and at what point you want it on social media, because that's important. And I've seen fights break out, like taking care of patients and somebody posts something and they're like, hold up, not good. So we definitely want to just clear that conversation too. Number 10, think about how you'll introduce your baby to your pets if you have pets. So this is another thing that some parents just, forget to think about, but cats and dogs often have some big feelings of their own when a new baby enters the family. I actually did have a professional dog trainer come on the podcast way back when, and I will link that episode in the show notes page too if you want to check it out. She gives some really, really great tips if you have a dog on kind of what to think about when bringing baby home and behaviors that your dog might do, that sort of thing. Number 11, try out your baby gear if you haven't yet. Yes. Oh my gosh. I can't stress this one enough, especially with your car seat. Okay. So hopefully by this point, you've got kind of the bigger things in place, like the crib, a rocking chair in the room. If you have that, like changing station, your dresser, all that stuff. You set up any bouncers or swings or whatever, and you even install the car seat. But if you haven't, definitely install the car seat. But I want to urge you to try this stuff out. Put your hands on it and don't just think, oh, I'll figure it out like the first time that I use it. I would really put your hands on this. Car seat especially, I've done posts on this before that it's so important to really just put your hands on your car seat and learn which buttons go where and how to adjust things, because it's very daunting if you've never had a kid and then you have a baby and you're trying to work with a car seat and you just have no idea what you're doing. It's a little learning curve. So some practice before having baby, whether it's with a baby doll, I use like a little stuffed animal, or if you have a good friend and they just had a baby and you want to just practice with their baby, that's really the best practice if you can get yourself a hold of a baby. But yeah, car seat is definitely the most important one. Check out the diaper bag. Even diaper bags, I feel like it's a learning curve. Like, okay, which pockets are for these? And know that when baby's here, you might obviously change your mind about certain things. But yeah, go through your diaper bag, check out the stroller, how to like fold and unfold the stroller. Practice with the pack and play, because that's things still pain in the butt 5 years later. Really, all of these things are usually designed for ease of use once you've got it down. So I encourage you to figure them out now while your frustration threshold is nice and high. Number 12, this is the last one. So start doing some techniques to encourage spontaneous labor. Yes, if you have a scheduled C-section, obviously we can skip this one. But if you're just waiting for baby to come and you're just waiting, might as well do some stuff, right? There are actually a ton of evidence-based and anecdotal ways to naturally induce labor out there, but you do have to remember that unless your body is physically ready, it just won't happen, okay? Doctors really don't know what triggers women to go into labor, which is really kind of crazy if you think about it, because we've been having babies for how long, right? There have been tons of studies on this subject, but and there's theories out there, but we just, we don't know, like, absolutely, this happens in your brain and then, this happens down here and that's what triggers that. Nope. Something about your baby's position, your cervix being nice and ready, and certain hormones all kind of seem to be key players in naturally inducing labor. I will link an article in the show notes page for you to check out. I have like a big article on a ton of them that I've listed out. And I encourage you to take a look at all of these, and definitely don't do these until the timeframes that we recommend. But all of these are safe to do. And I also always give a disclaimer of like, okay, for example, one of them is we talk about red raspberry leaf tea and the benefits of that. If you get yourself some red raspberry leaf tea and you think it's the most disgusting thing in the entire world, don't make yourself gag down red raspberry leaf tea, okay? If doing any of these is causing you stress, don't do them. It is okay. This is just for like, hey, I have some time, might as well do some of these things. It might really help to prep my cervix a little bit for when my body does decide it's time to go into labor. So if I don't hate red raspberry tea, like, might as well drink some of it, right? All right, so let's end this episode with some signs of labor, okay? It is also helpful to know some clues that labor might be imminent. And remember that some women don't have any warning signs at all. But these are some of the common ones that I hear. So you might just feel extra exhausted. And then sometimes you get this like burst of energy right before you go into labor. I've also heard of people, I experienced this definitely with my first pregnancy, but not with Ryland, with Walter, that I just felt this like mental fog. It's hard to even explain, but I've heard people also say that it's like, you just have this weird, like foggy kind of feeling. I experienced it the day before I went into labor, but I've heard of people like having this kind of feeling. And then a few hours later, a few hours later, go into labor. Another one to look out for is diarrhea. So this one, obviously, we need to say, hey, if you're throwing up and having diarrhea, you can get dehydrated pretty quickly. But we do, and obviously get that checked out, but we do see people have diarrhea kind of close to labor because it's just kind of your body's natural way of excreting your bowels. And also those same hormones that are starting to change your cervix can really relax your GI system, and that can cause some diarrhea as well. And then obviously the lovely mucus plug, right? So the mucus plug is one of those that some people lose them right before they go into labor. Some people don't lose it until they're in labor. Some people lose it the day before they go into labor. Some people lose it weeks before labor and they don't go into labor. So take that one with a grain of salt. But the mucus plug, what I like to tell people about that is if you do lose your mucus plug, don't expect to go into labor like really, really soon, but just know that your body is telling you like, hey, I'm getting prepared for this thing that's about to happen. So it's a good sign if you lost your mucus plug. It does kind of look like a giant booger, just FYI. It also can come out in pieces, but it looks like a giant booger. All right. And then the last one, well, the last two is, hey, you start to feel cramps that start to get stronger and more rhythmic, start to have these early contractions, and they're not really getting better with some things that you're doing. Sounds like labor. Or obviously if your water breaks, if your water breaks at any point or you feel like your water breaks, definitely go get it checked out. All right, that is it for this episode, guys. I hope to anybody listening that you have your baby soon, because if you're listening to this episode, you probably are like, I want to have my baby soon. So I hope that you have your baby soon. Already feeling a little more confident about pregnancy, birth, and newborn life? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can continue to erase the unknowns and never miss an episode. And if you're looking for even more, Instagram is definitely where I hang out the most. Come join our community of more than 500,000 moms for birth education, tips, and solidarity. You can find me at mommy.labornurse. Check out today's show notes and a searchable library of every Mommy Labor Nurse podcast episode at mommylabornurse.com/podcast. And while you're there, be sure to head to the blog to learn about our online birth classes too. See you next week. And remember, you can have an even better birth no matter how you deliver.